All right. So I'm going to shrink this guy up. There we go. So you guys all see the picture of the caulking?
Yep.
Yep. Nice. So anyway, I did this EIFS inspection the other day, and here's sort of a picture of generally what, EIFS siding. Everybody here knows what EIFS is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
So in any event, it was interesting. This was a 1992 build, and the seller basically claimed that they got, an EIFS inspection and that they've been maintaining the EIFS really well. And so I was like, well, that's good. That's good news, So I went out and did a visual inspection, and we'll go through some of those pictures more. Here's this guy, Don, do you know, this is Doug Heck, Sound Exterior Inspections.
Yeah, I've never met Doug, but I've sure recommended him before.
Yeah, he's pretty great. I'm in the same boat. I'd never met him. So I'm usually too busy, so all the snow screwed me up. So I'm like, sweet, I'm going to go out and actually watch his EIFS inspection. So this was what I wanted to show you here. But I mean,
Yeah.
I looked at the previous EIFS inspection report, and they didn't even have a picture or any mention of this water stain, which was right at the deck to wall juncture,
Uh-huh.
which just seemed like kind of a red flag to me.
Oh yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like, well, I don't know, so you hear like, okay, there's been an EIFS inspection. And so I go around and I'm like, I read it first and then I did my inspection. I'm like, well, that's funny. There seemed like a number of things, not huge amounts. It didn't look like a disaster to me, but this and this sort of window area seemed like it was going to be a problem. So look at how far his probe went in this time.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see the difference, but his
Are those like
probe,
are those 6 or 8 inch probes, Dylan?
yeah, they're long. Look how long it is. Can you see it right over here? You know, that's
Oh yeah. Yeah, they're probably 6, 8 inches.
yeah. I'd say at least 8. And so I don't know if in some places like there, he's probably driving it in. He hasn't hit the sheathing yet.
Yeah.
But there's certainly places where, hey Nick, sorry man, where he, there's nothing left of that sheathing, right? He went all the way through it.
Yeah. Oh, so that he wasn't pre-drilling, he was just shoving those suckers right in.
Yeah. With the EIFS, he can just pound on the end of this moisture meter and get it in to where he hits the sheathing. And he was saying that they would sometimes use an underlayment under EIFS, which will give you a false positive on the moisture meter.
Uh-huh. Yeah, 'cause it's got foil on it.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. So I learned from him that there's a lot of nuance and kind of interpretation to the whole thing. Anyway, you know that Mark Mittman used to do EIFS inspections.
Yeah.
So he apparently sold his company to Crow's Nest, but she's been doing it. So anyway, she was the one that. Somebody's got some music going on or something.
Sounds like you got an ice cream truck stuck in the internet.
Yeah. Who is that?
Not me.
What are we talking about here?
There's some kind of, I'm hearing like music or something that's showing up.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too, Dylan, and I don't listen. I listen to way better music than that.
Yeah, I think that's mine. I'm trying to figure out how to make it work.
Oh, cool. Well,
Not ripping on your music or anything.
Is that better?
that's better. Yeah, thanks, man. It sounded like the ice cream guy showed up at your place.
I'll take me a fudgesicle, please.
That's funny. Nice. I'm glad you're here, Randy. So anyway, here's his moisture probe. So in this corner, he was getting high readings, but I did learn from him that, this whole EIFS probing is, there's a lot of kind of nuance to the whole thing. Then it's not just jam it in and get a reading. And, I think we all have experience using moisture meters. It all made a lot of sense to me. But I brought this up because, we are often confronted with this, like, well, we've had experts out already, and here's the opinion of it. And in the expert opinion of this other, oh man, that ice cream music is back. In the
Sorry, guys.
uh,
Trying to fix it.
in the opinion of the person that came before, there was really nothing wrong with the EIFS, and there really was. It wasn't extensive, but there were definitely problems with it, and I got a bunch of kind of pushback of, and the agents had my back. They weren't like throwing me under the bus, but they're like, well, why are you recommending another inspection of this? And I was basically like, well, because I read the report and I'm doing a visual inspection. I don't really trust what they said. I don't think they looked hard, and I don't think they know what's going on. This was another spot that I found, which I don't think was water damage, but the stucco was kind of damaged by this porch here. And then,
well, and Dylan, it's supposed to be held up off the porch by an inch, just like fiber cement board, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. So we've got an issue here where, and this wasn't called out in the report, which obviously that's hard to fix, but to not say anything about it really worried me that they weren't looking very carefully. So we've got a couple issues here. Now I'm showing you my original inspection before that guy Doug showed up, but this was really interesting. They basically had a handyman come by and apply caulking between the EIFS and the metal windows, and they didn't cut out the old caulking. They just kind of replaced the caulking on the top. Kick-out flashings were working, but kind of vulnerable. They're really low here, these lead kick-out flashings. So that kind of didn't seem like an active problem to me, but definitely kind of worried me a bit.
Boy, EIFS and a tile roof, that's a nice combination.
That's right. I know, right? I'm trying to get you to, a lot of the small penetrations just had like caulking around them. This was a roof-to-wall juncture that they just never mentioned that there were water staining in the EIFS inspection. That's a close-up of that staining there. And that may or may not be getting underneath the EIFS, but it certainly, to not have that show up in the EIFS inspection was really kind of alarming to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they were doing it for the seller, not for the person.
Yeah, or they didn't know what the hell they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, hard to distinguish incompetence from corruption, but
yeah, it's a phrase, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, a new deck. They kept the old posts and beams, but had new deck joists. They had deck joists, treated posts that were from '92 in soil contact, which I tried to probe. I couldn't find any rot there, but that was certainly something I wanted to call out as being risky for wood decay. And now here we are at that stained section that I saw. I mean,
oh yeah,
this is what I wanted to show you. I mean, you could just take this picture and say 1992 EIFS. Hey, Tori, am I in Nick's way at all? Cool. The odds of water not getting around these windows or this deck juncture or right up here somewhere. I mean, this is a west and south exposure here. So, I was, anyway, and this is where Doug put his moisture probe in, and there was no sheathing left. So I don't think this building actually had pretty nice roof overhangs, and I wasn't super worried about it. But this spot right here seemed like it was likely to be a problem, as was this other spot up in here.
Well, and it's pre drain plane era, so almost guaranteed we'll have some problem somewhere.
That's right, Don. Yeah. So, Greg, if you're not familiar with that, I mean, the EIFS today is almost always installed as a drainage plane system, where air and water can move behind it. Whereas in '92, that was like right in the era where nobody knew how to install this stuff well, and they weren't careful with flashings and stuff. So I just
was drain plane started about 2000.
That's probably about right. I don't know for sure. That would have been a good question for Doug. But yeah, I mean, I think it was sort of the nosedive that we went into in the '90s. We started pulling out around the 2000s.
Yeah.
So probably somewhere in there that became the way to do it. So yeah, so you nailed it, Don. It's pre-drainage plane. They're metal window frames. If you look at some of the close-ups, I think I've got a few more pictures here.
least they did expansion joints.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually, I mean, there wasn't a total disaster. Let's see. Go back to. Yeah, this is what I was looking for.
Watching what pictures you.
Yeah, kind of interesting just to see what different pictures people take and stuff, huh?
Yeah.
But this is what I mean, this was the south face on that bank of windows, and this was just recently caulked, and they didn't really prep the caulking joints well, so the caulking was already failing, and it was brand new. Plus, these joints in the windows are probably starting to open up.
I read, Dylan, you probably read. I read that 15 to 20% of perfectly well-made windows will leak at their seams, just because that's an industry standard, and it was never considered a problem. But in EIFS, that can be a big deal.
Yep.
So even if all the EIFS is installed perfectly and the windows are built perfectly, just the normal window manufacturing tolerances can cause leaks.
Yep. And so that's I love that, Don. That's when you think about that statistic, and then you think about 1992 EIFS, and you think about a set of windows. I'm trying to find the picture, and you think about that. I'm just thinking to myself, there's no way there's not water around some of those windows. It's almost statistically impossible.
Right. Maybe not in Arizona.
Yeah, that's right. And it's had a beautiful view of the water in the Olympics, which means it's taken a ton of weather here. So in any event, the realtors got on board, and my client got on board, and we got a second opinion out, and I went out and met Doug, and he was finding problems, not huge ones, but certainly things that I'm sure were going to cost many thousands of dollars to fix. So I just thought it was a cool discussion of we're often confronted with this idea that a specialist has already been out, and I think it's a really easy place for us to get into trouble or get lulled into complacency, and we can be easily put on the spot where it's really uncomfortable, because it's like, well, I'm not the specialist, but I'm looking at what the specialist did, and I see things that aren't on their report.
Yeah.
And
we're in such a weird business that the more educated and the more experience we get under our belts, the less likely the realtors will want to work with us. So we got to hope that our business is big enough that the people recognize word of mouth that's an attribute instead of a deficit.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that sad that we work in an industry where the better you get at it, the more you get penalized by the other players in the industry?
Yeah, if you're really diligent, you can work yourself out of a job theoretically. Although luckily with the internet and stuff, that's not true. But it is weird to lose realtors over doing too diligent a job.
I would venture to say, in my experience, most of all the realtors I work with would have been totally behind me and supportive of all this, but I work with a really small percentage of that pie, and there's a lot of places where I can visualize the amount of pushback I would have gotten on recommending another inspection, even though they just had one.
And my take is, if you can generate that small cadre of good realtors that'll have your back, it's a win-win, because one, you can do your job and do your clients a lot of good, and two is you probably won't have people coming after you as often because they'll back you up.
Yeah, that's right. And as the agents were cool. I was like, well, look, part of why we're doing this is so that these guys are all set up for 5 years from now when you go to list their house for them.
No, that's a good point.
Right. That's what agents tell me. I like to use you because I know that in 5 years when I sell the house, a bunch of weird stuff's not going to come up.
That's awesome. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's cool. Here's another pretty interesting thing. This was permitted by the city.
They notched it.
Yeah, they notched the post. They notched the 4x4 post.
Yeah, hasn't that been a no-no for about 4 years?
Yeah, at least, I think. I don't know when that code changed. But that was another thing, and the realtor's like, well, how come it got permitted, and how come the city didn't say anything? I'm like, wow, but that's another spot where I felt really put on the spot of I don't know what they do or don't do, but I can't ignore it. That's.
You know what I tell them, because I get that a lot of times. Well, it got permitted, and I'm like, look, the poor city guy, he's doing 25 or 30 houses a day or 15 or something. He doesn't have time to spend 4.5 hours or 3 hours or 2 hours walking around. So he's going to miss a whole bunch more than me, not because he's better or worse. He just has more places to hit.
That's right. Doesn't have the time. And, I don't even know, when you permit a deck, does that even mean they come and inspect it to make sure it's all to code? I kind of doubt it. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, it might be just they just want the fee.
That would be my guess. I've been meaning to go into the building department and ask them about it. But anyway, I thought these were kind of cool conversations. So now we could go ahead and write a report on some of these things. We could look up, if you guys are into, we could just look on how I reported on some of these things. Would that be useful?
Yeah.
Just
to me, everything's useful, Dylan. I'm such a,
Who do we have still here? Looks like Greg could sort it out. I think Randy left. We got Jed. You on here, Jed?
Yep.
All right. Oh, there's Greg.
We have 5 of them, don't we?
Yeah, Randy, you on here? Anyway, all right, cool. Glad you guys made it.
I'm just the yucky one.
So I called this a due diligence item because I didn't really know how much of a problem it was. So the exterior stucco portions of the siding appear to be done in an exterior insulated finish. This is synthetic stucco designed as a barrier siding. EIFS is essentially a coat of plaster laid over rigid foam. Visual inspection is of limited benefit on this type of siding, as this is a barrier system. If water gets behind this foam, it can lead to concealed water damage. Apparently, the siding has been looked at by an EIFS specialist. See the report. I noted several red flags on the exterior that were not mentioned in this EIFS report, notably water stains on the siding at the south side roof wall juncture and water stains on the soffit at the west side at the deck to wall juncture. Based on visual inspection and the potential risk associated with EIFS, I would consider obtaining a second opinion to verify the system is performing well to date. Examples of specific observations noted during inspection include, and then I took my bulleted list of my photo captions, so we can go on the hot link and we can go, here's the observation right in the chapter. And here's, I gave some people they could call that do this kind of inspection, but then you can see all my pictures of showing the defects that I found, and I captioned every one of them, or most of them, I guess. That helpful? Just checking it out? I don't know.
Yeah.
Got multiple pictures of the staining on the soffit and stuff.
Boy, the pictures really drive the point home.
Yeah, I think so. And then I also noted, I was able to get underneath the crawl space in some places. This was actually a really nicely built house. These pony walls were sheathed in plywood and they look great, underneath the house. So, I wasn't in any way trying to throw the whole EIFS thing under the bus. I think EIFS is not necessarily something to get totally hysterical about, but Don had a great point, like where it's exposed to the weather and you got old metal windows and it's 90s EIFS, it probably verges on 100% chance that where you're taking a lot of weather, there's at least some amount of water getting in.
Yep. And it can't get out.
That's right, and it can't get out, and so that's where like his moisture probe went all the way through the sheathing in some spots. So anyway, and this observation, a lot of software companies try to tell you how you can write your report on an app, and you spend 15 minutes writing a report, but I think ScribeWare offers a tool that is better and different than that, and it allows you to kind of dig in a bit deeper, and you can see there's a lot of subtlety I was dealing with here. I tried to say how well someone else had done a report here, and here's their phone number, and I read their report, and despite having a report, I found a bunch of things that weren't mentioned. And here's a whole bulleted list of them, and here's some people I would call that get a proper EIFS inspection. Anyway, is that helpful?
Well, and it's good doing that too, because one thing that I like that we as inspectors have tried not to do is damn someone else's work.
Yep.
Because the contractors love doing that to us, and it makes me mad when I recommend a contractor and then they're like, "Oh, why didn't your inspector see that?" It's like, guys, let's just I'll do our jobs, because the worst thing you want is call someone out and find out that they were right and we were wrong.
Well, and I really appreciate that, Don. I was feeling that the entire time that I was dealing with this sort of thing. Is I'm like, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. Like that's not what I'm after here. But I just saw things that it didn't all come together to me. And so I tried to do it in a way that was like as impartial as possible. Of just like, well, here's what I see, and
And what I like about this style is you're not throwing anyone under the bus. You're pointing stuff out. If they don't want to move forward on getting a second opinion and it turns out to be problems, it's all documented out. So you've not only done your client a good service, you've protected yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I really did come out and say, like, wherever it is, I would consider obtaining a second opinion. I could have written that more strongly, I suppose, And
No, you don't have to, though. It's there.
Yeah, and I could have called it a major concern. I thought about it, but I don't know. I was like,
I was gonna say I'm kind of surprised that it was just a due diligence and not a major concern.
Yep. I waffled about it and thought about it, and I was basically like, I don't know, someone else put their name on it as having done this whole EIFS inspection, and I'm
well. That's a good point. Is that somebody else already put their name on it? I guess it would have been totally different if you would have seen those firsthand, and they wouldn't have had any sort of idea what was going on or anything at all. But
I think that's probably why
that is a good point.
I think that's probably why, Jed, that I leaned towards a due diligence item, and I bet partly it was a bit psychological of not wanting to throw somebody under the bus a bit, and
No, that's interesting, Dylan.
That's totally understandable.
You're not trashing them by doing due diligence, but you still get the point across. Because I would have been hard pressed not to go major defect too, but if someone did that, you're like, yeah, well, they're the professional. I get it.
Yeah, and it's basically your due diligence to check that all of the work that they said, matches up, doesn't match up with the work that I said. So
right,
that's kind of it. It was like, well, someone else came out and said everything's fine, and what I'm saying is I read what they said, and then I did my own inspection, and I see things that don't add up, and if it were me, I'd get a second opinion.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I understand that now.
Yeah, and the cool thing about doing these, what I enjoy about all this, is that there's no right or wrong way. I mean, you could debate it, and I think I easily could have called it a major concern, and maybe I should have. But in any event, it was a really good experience. The realtors were cool and went to bat and got people out, and so, and the client feels looked after, so I think it's all good. I wanted to show one other cool thing about infrared inspections. I think using infrared is helpful. I don't know how else to put it. I mean, in the summer I don't use it so much because everything's the same temperature, but this was a vaulted ceiling, or like a big one of those big 2-story entryways, and you guys see the pictures here, but they just forgot to insulate an exterior wall in this whole vaulted ceiling area, and super easy.
That's like above the front door or something like that.
Yeah, those entries where you come in and it's like 2 stories right at the entry, and
you can see the chandelier.
Sort of thing, so.
Yeah, there's the chandelier. So easy as cake to see on a cold day. It's like, oh wow, they forgot to insulate a wall. So anyway, it turns out it was the estimate was $1,300 to blow insulation into the wall from the inside. Yeah. I kind of figured. I mean, you have almost no materials cost, but they got to show up and cut holes in the sheetrock and then like pump insulation in. So that was another one I waffled between major concern and repair, and I called it a repair item.
I would have too, because I'll tell people that my 2 concerns is that for some reason the insulation in that place is just an inch off and the other stuff's laying on the drywall.
Yeah.
And then the other one is how much heat can you buy to heat that one area up with $1,300?
Yeah.
I think that's a repair, not a major.
Yep. Yeah. So, I don't know. I would want it fixed. I actually think it would be on a cold day. Like, I just don't think you could keep that space comfortable,
Well, it'd end up ghosting on you all the time too.
Yeah, that's right. And you can get condensation, and it's just going to always feel cold on a cold day in that big open space. So,
even if it's psychosomatic.
Yep. Yeah, I think you'd really notice it. I felt like I felt it, but always.
How big an area was it, Dylan? Like 5 feet by 10 feet or something.
Yeah, that's probably right. I mean, look, you got 4 to 5 stud bays or 4 stud
Yeah,
bays, and they're probably
that's
12
20.
feet tall or something, So,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
yeah, it was a decent thing. So,
Is that
anyway,
moisture on that other one?
this was just
Lower
missing,
left?
missing insulation around the fan.
Oh, okay.
And then this one right here, we're at 61.6. The attic access hatch insulation was loose.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what that one was. So anyway, just some cool pictures. Here's another interesting one, but CSST, right? So we've got
Yep.
the bonding requirements for that, and you can see no bonding on the outside and no bonding on the inside. Let's see, how do I get out of that? Here's where it comes in. So there should be, I would think, a number 4 copper on either, ideally it would have been right outside there. So another good thing to look for, right? And this was, I think, built as an all-electric house, and they added the propane. Another thing I love about ScribeWare, but you can go to fuel storage, and it's like there's your propane tanks. But anytime you see those little 5-gallon tanks, they usually have added it later. It wasn't part of the original build, and the only thing that was propane there was the cooktop. So anyway, I think somebody added it and they didn't know the bonding requirements, or it predated the bonding requirements when they put it in. But that was another thing, and I think I reported on that. I can't, I go back and forth on that bonding of whether to put it in. Yeah, I put it in the gas piping section because it's interesting. You guys know with the CSST, the bonding is actually the manufacturer of the CSST that requires it. It's not the NEC. It's not electrical code.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And there's a lot of nuance to that. It's the electrical code requires the metal gas pipe to be bonded, but you could use like a number 10 conductor. It can be pretty small, but the CSST, the yellow jacketed stuff, requires a number 4, one of those big thick copper ones, maybe even number 2 or 4. I can't remember. But it's because of lightning strikes.
Right.
And it's a manufacturer's thing, not a NEC thing. So you could run into that even on a new build. Now they're getting away from this yellow jacketed stuff, but the electricians wouldn't necessarily know the code for the gas pipe.
So does the new black CSST need to be bonded also?
It does, but not with the number 4 stuff.
Oh, okay. Smaller gauge.
Yeah. Just to NEC at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
And I've seen Charlie get into some fights with everybody online about it, where people say it doesn't need bonding, and he's like, no, it totally needs bonding per NEC. You just don't need the special bonding that was required for the yellow jacket CSST.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Could our lives be any more complicated?
Well, geez, I watch. I just like you said, I'd never want to do sewer scopes for a living, but what a simple concept.
I know. It's like it's broken. It's like
jam the camera down, pull it back up, get your money, and move on, and make sure you wash your hands before dinner.
Yeah, that's right. I love it, Don.
And buy a wheelbarrow to take your money to the bank.
So let's see. Do you guys? I mean, you guys all know this pretty well. Are there stuff you guys want to? You have questions about writing a ScribeWare report here that we could go over that would be helpful?
For me, Dylan, it'd be when you pull a picture in and caption it, how to do the bullet list that goes into the report.
Yeah, let's look at that.
I've watched your tutorial on that, but I'd love to just see it again.
Yeah, well, let's do it here with the EIFS. We'll just start filling in this section. So you guys know with the pictures, we can start. We can grab whatever pictures we want by highlighting them, right? We won't do too many because we're just doing a little demo here, but All right, we'll put these in, and then we'll call this a major concern this time. And we're going to say EIFS, and I do have some boilerplate language here, so general note to further evaluate, or here's another EIFS observation with big red flags. To me, this was sort of further evaluate. Notice how it went back to due diligence, because that's how I have it saved in the library, but you could call it a major concern if you want. So let's see, we want to put some captions in. So now the thing that Steve's working on right now is with the mobile app, we're going to be able to use voice recognition on site. If you're using a phone or a tablet, you take your picture and you just tag it. So what I'm hoping I can do is when I see this, I can say water stain below windows, west side, right? And then when I bring the picture in, it would already come pre-captioned, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
So here I'm just going to say, right? You guys all able to read this okay?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So I'm grabbing some arrows and stuff here, you know. We'll hit save. Let's see, now I'm going to hit, this one's actually okay, but caulking failure. Juncture. And so you get the point. I could keep going and captioning all of these, but let's say we've done all of them here. We can come up to this spot, so we put our cursor here, and then we hit, this is the magic button, Don. You guys all see this?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
So you hit that guy, and that gives you your bulleted
So
list.
Dylan, that wasn't there before you started captioning. It only pops up on that bar when you've captioned pictures.
Say that again?
That icon wasn't there when you started. It only pops up.
That's right. It's only there once you start to caption pictures.
Because I was looking for it, and that's why I asked that question. Now I know how to find it.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why it can kind of disappear on you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
this one kind of messed up my formatting on with these guys. Trying to fix that here. There we go. There we go. That's kind of more what I want it to look like. And then I think you can put like a little line or something across if you wanted to. These contractors, however you want to do it. And then, you know, sometimes I have these really long lists, and sometimes the bullets are not totally, you know, it might say like this diagram shows, and you know, so if you have this whole list and you wanted to get rid of one, you can just highlight it and get rid of it.
Uh-huh.
You know,
okay.
so sometimes I kind of customize my bulleted list a little bit. But boy, when we have the mobile app, if you can caption all of your photos with voice recognition, you know, I've played a lot with voice recognition, and I've found that writing an observation with voice recognition is nearly useless. It's really difficult to do. It's just hard to make it's hard to dictate what you want an attorney to read.
Right.
You know,
right.
That's so, you know, but it's pretty easy to tag a photo and say like water stain at the west side. You know, so
right.
I think it's an incredibly effective use of voice recognition that ought to be pretty successful when combined with this little piece of technology, so that now when we drag our pictures in, they're pre-captioned, you know.
Yeah, because the photos are kind of caveman talk.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, it takes a little bit of time for me to go through and caption all these, you know. So, I mean, that EIFS observation probably took me 20 minutes or something or longer. But I don't know, you know, I mean, I charged a fair amount for the inspection, and it's a $1 point something million house, and you're gonna take the time and get it right. I thought this was interesting. Look at this picture here where the snow was on the compressor. I thought this compressor was broken because there were two heat pumps, and only one of them had no snow on it, and one of them was clearly was running when I showed up. I wonder if there's another picture of it. But it turns out they just had the thermostat down. So when I turned up the thermostat, I got that compressor to come on. Good
No assumption.
Yeah, right. I never make an assumption. I saw it and I'm like, I wonder if that's broken. And then I was like, well, there could be other things here. So, looks like the hose bed's been leaking. Anyway, were there any other things you guys want me to show you here that might be cool stuff for you to be using ScribeWare? Do you guys know how to edit the description fields? Right, so you can hit this little guy, and this allows you to go in. So here we'll go someplace where we'll go into like heating and cooling. So if you wanted to add another manufacturer of furnaces, you see how I'm doing all this?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you can look what I don't have, Mitsubishi. So let's add it. So we'll save. So how I like to make changes to the template is I prefer going in, if you guys are paying per report, you don't get charged until you print a report. So I could make a new report here and I'll call it like template. And then this will be the report that I'll go back to and just kind of use to modify my template. So I'll show you how to do it. We'll go back in here. We're going to add Mitsubishi. Whoops. We're going to add Mitsubishi to our list of manufacturers. And then we'll save it. And then in the very beginning here, you see that we're in our residential inspection template. There's this little save report template. So I can just click on that. And now I've saved that permanently for all my other inspections. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
obviously the library, you can if you're working on the library, you can add an observation, you can write something you want, and then if you don't save it, it's not saved. And if you want to, you can hit these guys and add it permanently to your library. But with the templates changes, like, if you, for example, wanted to only have one bathroom forever, our default template comes with 4 bathrooms. And if you want to erase one, you can just erase that chapter for a particular report. But if you wanted to, like if you want to have 3 bathrooms and you want to save that, now that I've gotten rid of that, I can go up here and I could hit this guy, and now my default template would just have these 3 bathrooms. Does that make sense?
I didn't quite understand how you. Oh yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. Yep.
So I just got rid of that bathroom just for this report. So like if I'm doing a house that just has 1 bathroom, I might go through and just get rid of these chapters.
They won't show up if you don't enter information in them, though,
That's right. If they're blank, they won't show up at all.
Okay.
But bathrooms are the one logic that's funny because we have these pre-filled out here. That's actually something I've been talking to Steve about, is maybe our default, just getting rid of these. And I can actually do it here. I don't want to save these permanently, but again, like if I wanted to get rid of this and not have it be a default, now there's no default there. You see how I did that?
Mm-hmm. So you could make that permanent.
I would need to go back to make this permanent. I need to go back to property and information and hit this disk. Right. And then that would permanently change my template. I'm not going to hit it now because I'm down to 1 bathroom and I like having 4.
Yeah.
So I don't want to change, and that's the thing. It's sort of why you need to have one template that you're going to make your changes to your template, because you're always trying to kind of perfect your template. Once you're doing a live report, I don't recommend you saving your template, because it's too easy to have changed something that you don't want to make permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So, But it's kind of cool. I mean, for everyone who wants to like build their own template, it's really pretty flexible. You can go in and retitle chapters and stuff. One of the few things that you can't do, but Steve can do on the back end, is resequence the chapters.
That was my next question.
Yeah, it's I don't know why he hasn't done that yet, but it's one thing we can't do yet. But almost everything else you can do, change and retitle and add stuff all by yourself, all with this little thing lets you do all those pull downs.
Mm-hmm.
The little pencil. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Let's see. Are there any other things you guys would like me to show you here? I think one of the things I've been doing more of is just including pictures of the listing plates on big pieces of equipment. So easy to do.
Or do you just put them in the general photos? I mean, that section.
Yeah, like under heating, I'll just have a bunch of different pictures, and some of them might be like, here's the filters clean, and here's the listing plate for the compressor, and here's a bunch of thermal images of the heating system running. I've been using my thermal camera quite a bit for just showing that everything's working.
Mm-hmm.
I think I probably did it here. We'll go to this. Well, here, let's see what I wrote in the inspection. All right. So we can go into the report. We can go into heating and cooling. There's some good stuff we could chat about here. Here's I've been doing a lot of videos of heat pumps running.
That just proves that they worked when you were there, right?
Yeah, kind of hard to say like, oh, you didn't inspect the heat pump.
Yeah.
Like, well, that's interesting. I've got videos of them running. I'll put a picture of who was last servicing it. And then I'll put the listing plates in if I can, and then I'll go through and I might not take a picture of every register in there, but I'll put a bunch of registers, and my language is just these are just showing that generally the heating system was working during inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of good cover yourself stuff. Here's pictures of the bathroom floor heat working. What I wanted to show you guys here, this is a cool diagram. I think I shared it in our Facebook group, but look at this. I love this. It shows the optimum zone for indoor relative humidity.
Oh, yeah. Where'd you get that?
I think I poached it from somebody's, like some PowerPoint of indoor air quality,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, isn't that awesome? I mean, you always like, you keep your indoor relative humidity around 50%. It's like, I love how it shows all the different things, and if it gets too dry or too wet. So anyway, I like to put that in. And I'll often make notes that I put it in conjunction. This house had a humidifier, and I'm always terrified somebody's going to use it. So anyway.
Yeah, I always take pictures of humidifiers if they're there. Dehumidifiers, excuse me. Dehumidifiers. Well,
dehumidifiers, yeah, right. You take a picture of those when you see them because it tells you the basement's probably damp. But then a humidifier, when it's on the HVAC system, I'm always scared somebody will actually use it.
Yeah, I just tell them those are just designed to grow mold.
Yeah, exactly. So and this is a cool little diagram you can put with it. I mean, I said the house has a humidifier, see the air handler. These are not recommended during winters. This can contribute to high relative humidity and problems with condensation. Refrain from using this in the heating system in the winter months, or be sure to keep indoor relative humidity below 55%.
Perfect.
That's kind of good, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll often be putting pictures of like the irrigation control box. That's another thing I've been doing a lot more of is there's a lot of things that we don't inspect, but I'll still make a note about them of like, well, I don't inspect your irrigation, but it looks like you have an irrigation system.
Yeah. I always didn't mention that I don't inspect them because everyone thinks we do.
Yeah, people don't know what we don't do, so you have to kind of tell them, you know.
Right.
I like this one. My own experience with irrigation systems is that they require annual attention, repair, and servicing after every winter. It's true. There's always something broken on them, you know. When testing the system, be sure the sprinkler heads are adjusted so the system's not watering the side of the house. But, anyway, and this is, I think, a great use of the videos. You know, they're just easy. I just take quick little 5-10 second clips, you know. This was basement moisture, but you know, during inspection, I used infrared and felt corners, checked for signs of moisture. You know, if a basement seems dry, I'll say that I can't find it wet. You know.
Mm-hmm.
You comment on this, Don? Those carpet stain, you know, get the shadows from the carpets on the hardwoods.
You know, I'm really random about that because it's just cosmetic, but it's an expensive fix because you have to refinish, and nobody's going to have the same size carpets.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll just tell them verbally, and if they're like, "Oh yeah, we know," then I don't. I probably should though because no one likes, you know.
Yeah, I figure it's pretty important to at least, I call it a note here. You know.
Yeah.
Arguably, it's not really a repair item. You know, but
but it's going to look ugly.
Yeah, and if if it surprises somebody, they could get upset about it, you know.
Yeah. I've been meaning for years to put in, and I don't, maybe have it, put in something about, you know, stuff should be looked at when the house is empty before final walkthrough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's smart. Yeah.
Well, it's smart, but I haven't done it.
No, but that would be smart. It's like, hey, you know, there's stuff in here today, you know, for cosmetic concerns, smart to do a walkthrough prior to close when all the stuff's removed. You know,
yep.
That'd be a pretty smart thing to put in there. I don't do that. This was another thing that, you know, any water stain, I report on it. You know, boy, water stains noted on the ceiling, you know, north side balcony. I tested it; it was dry. You know, inquire with the seller for any history and repair the stain as desired. I think it's really important that you look for and document any kind of water stain, even if it's dry.
Well, the great thing about that too is if you get a call in here, hey, there's a water stain in the corner of the basement. Did you notice it? It's like, yep, it's in the report. Checked it. It's dry. Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's right. You nailed it.
Yeah, or conversely, hey, there's water dripping out of it now. It's like, yep, not when I did it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, really important. Any water stain, gotta document it. There's a chip on the window, a couple lost seals. This was a funny one. This was a window in a stairwell, and then this is a window in a tub enclosure, and no tempered glass logo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like in new construction when you find a non-tempered in the master bath.
Yeah.
So you start looking for the same size window in one of the bedrooms.
I love that. I know. So you feel so proud when you find the tempered glass in like the bedroom or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah. It's funny. That's only happened to me a couple of times, but
yeah, me too. I probably missed it 100 times, but.
Well, here's a good question.
What's that?
Well, here's an interesting question. I'm assuming this is from the EIFS, but look at the jam extensions in the house. They're like 7 inches.
Yeah, but EIFS.
You think it's because of the EIFS that just made it thicker? You know.
But it wouldn't have been 2x4 framing back then. Well, yeah, it would have been, wouldn't it have?
92.
If it was 2x4 framing and a 4-inch EIFS, it sure could be, but it wouldn't have been 2x6. It would have been thicker.
Yeah, and even if it was 2x6, you'd have what, 5.5?
5 1/4, 5.5. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then so 5.5 plus like
1/2-inch drywall.
Yeah. So anyway, they seem kind of like thick jam extensions to me. That's one of those good things. Yeah, I don't know.
I was going to say standard framing, 1/2-inch sheathing outside, 1/2-inch drywall inside. 2x6 would have been 6.5 inches.
Yeah.
So, you know, it gets thick real quick. And then the trim.
Yeah.
That's 8 inches out to the outside.
It was 7 inches between the window and the trim. So the jam extension was an even 7 inches, which wasn't huge, but that seemed big to me, and I was just.
That's a weird size.
It is kind of. I don't know why it really just stuck out to me. So Looks like I had a capital N by accident, but I said this might be due to the EIFS that it just made it thicker somehow. I don't know. I wasn't sure, but a smart thing to look at whenever you do in a house is just jam extensions. It tells you, we can't see the framing, but it gives you some kind of clue of how maybe it was framed or something funny was going on. And every once in a while you do one that's like insulated concrete forms or some weird thing, and the jams are really thick.
Oh.
Trying to think. Air gap. Oh, here's a funny one. Look at
That's a wow.
I think there's some orange lips on that flame.
Yeah, a little uncontrolled fire.
Yeah.
You should have thrown some water on that baby.
Yeah, get some firewood out and have a bonfire. Get in the kitchen. Yeah. Anyway, look at this. This was this fancy tub fill.
That's it. I've seen that before. Isn't that stupid?
Yeah, it's so funny. Run it up in the ceiling.
Yeah. It's like a water feature. It's like pouring the syrup high. That's silly.
Slow drains. Anyway. Yeah, I charged them a fair amount for that inspection, but whatever. It took me the whole day. I was writing reports, and that was my whole day there. Anyway, I'd be happy to show you guys any stuff you want on ScribeWare of doing the report, but I think you guys mostly know, don't you? Do you need tricks of how to use it? You still have questions?
You've shown me some. I'm only good for learning 1 or 2 tricks at a time, or it overwhelms me.
That's right. Too many tricks would kill you. Well, and I need to get rolling here. I want to get home to my. It's not really a cold house because our wood stove's heating it, but our powerless house.
When did you lose power?
Yesterday afternoon.
When are they going to get it back on for you?
I have no idea. I worry.
Oh man,
it's a mess over here. There's freaking trees sagging and falling all over the place.
Oh jeez.
Yeah.
Have to worry about the stuff in your refrigerator.
I know. Well, luckily we just throw everything out in the a cooler.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah. Anyway,
hey Dylan, can you send a recording of this? Can you send me a recording of this? I missed some of the beginning.
Yeah, I recorded this, so I'll put it up on the ScribeWare Facebook page, and I'll upload it to YouTube. So if you don't run into it, let me know, and I'll make sure I get it to you.
Thanks.
But yeah, I think I thought the EIFS is a cool conversation that gets to me of what I really do still think is special about ScribeWare compared to a lot of other softwares is that it lets you dig into a lot of nuance and report things in a really accurate, professional, simple way. And you're not stuck with all this like satisfactory, not satisfactory, checkboxy kind of language, which I think for this EIFS house, it just wasn't really going to, you can't do that, it was more.
No, it looks great, Dylan.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate it.
Well, it does. It's a real good professional one. I'm really psyched, especially with the picture captioning and stuff. Just fantastic.
Yeah. No, I think, there are certainly faster ways to write a report where you can just check boxes and roll. But if you're going to be, doing really nice, quality, clear reports, I don't think you can go a whole lot faster than this. And we're improving it with when we get the mobile app. I do think having pre-captioned photos will make some things like the complicated EIFS a lot quicker, because now you can use that general statement and bring in pre-captioned pictures and make your bulleted list below without having to do hardly any custom writing, which would be awesome.
Yep.
So cool, guys. Well, I really appreciate you showing up. Thanks for playing along here, and feel free to reach out if you ever want to do these. I do them whenever I can, but if someone requests them, I'm happy to do them whenever.
Thanks, Dylan. I hope you get power on soon.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, guys. Have a nice day.
Okay, stay warm.
Dylan.
All right, cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Hey, Mike, you on here?
I'm here.
Hey, Mike, how are you, man?
Oh, I just got home and just running late on home inspections.
Hey, man, we actually were just finishing up. I started at 3, and I don't know, maybe we got messed up in our time zones or something.
Well, I think we're 2 hours ahead of you here. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's
So I
probably.
thought, well, I thought I'd just take a chance.
Yeah. Well, and I actually recorded it though. I'm hoping I did anyway, and so actually looking on my computer to see where that will be. But I'll totally share the recording. We had some really cool conversations. I did an EIFS inspection the other day, and it was pretty complicated. That the seller had sort of displayed all this stuff that they had been looking after it, and it turns out they really hadn't been. Can you see my screen here?
Yeah.
Yeah, here I'll go over it with you real quick. So it was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Do you guys have EIFS out there much, or?
We do have some of it. You don't see a tremendous amount, but it's becoming a little bit more popular, I guess, as time goes on.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have a ton of it here. This was the house that concerned me, and this we don't have a ton of stucco looking stuff here in general because it's not, much more wood siding kind of products. But it was interesting. They said they'd had an EIFS inspection, and let's see if I can get to the pictures. There was all kinds of things that were jumping out at me. There was some water staining. Yeah, here you can see. And so I read through the EIFS inspection that had been disclosed, and they didn't even have a picture or any comment about this water staining here, right at the deck to wall juncture. So anyway, I recommended getting, even though they had an EIFS specialist out, I recommended getting a different EIFS inspection and getting a second opinion. And so then because of our snowstorms out here, I'm usually working and I can never show up and follow up, but I was actually able to get back out there it was yesterday, and this was pretty cool. Have you ever seen them do an EIFS inspection?
I have never seen them do an inspection like that. No.
Yeah, I thought you'd think it was cool. So he had this whole bundle of these are all of his caulking that he uses to fill his little probe holes, so he matches the stucco. And this guy, he does them all from Alaska to Idaho to Washington to Oregon. He's Pacific Northwest stucco and EIFS inspections. That's kind of all this guy does. And there you can see his probe. And
I bet he makes good money.
Yeah, I think his inspection's about $800 or $900, something like that. And probably doesn't. I mean, I probably does one a day. I'd probably just take him all day. But he's got to write a report and stuff, and he tries to map out, sort of where issues are. Look at that. I mean, so the other EIFS inspection said there was basically nothing wrong with it, and here his probe went all the way through the sheathing.
So, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's the real deal. It was pretty localized. He wasn't super concerned, but there was definitely some damage there that was going to have to be fixed. So here he is kind of pounding in the EIFS probe. Here, obviously, it hit the sheathing, but he was saying that, I can't remember the name of it, he said, but some of the EIFS, they would use a weather barrier that has foil on it, so you got to be really careful with these pins, because if you hit the foil, you'll get a false positive. From the metal. I thought that was kind of interesting. He was really neat talking to him about it. You really got the sense that EIFS inspection, there's just a lot of nuance to it. It's not like a slam dunk thing. It's like when we use our moisture meters. I mean, just because I get a high reading doesn't mean there's a problem, right? You start kind of it's one of your tools. So anyway, this guy was really pretty cool. This was the house. You can see most of the house is pretty well protected by roof overhangs. So I actually wasn't super worried that the house had chronic rot all over it, but it definitely there were some issues that were not brought up in the EIFS inspection, and so I recommended getting another EIFS inspection. and
it doesn't look like a very good installation.
Nah. 92 when we weren't doing it well, and I've got some pictures I was trying to get you to that. Yeah, I mean, this is funny. They said new code built deck and stuff that they pulled permits for, and right, they notched the choice. Isn't that funny?
Yeah, that's right.
And everyone's like, "What? We pulled a permit." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, but you're not supposed to notch the choice, you know."
My gosh.
Right, but this was full south and west exposure here, so that I mean, 92 EIFS, I was pretty certain there was going to be some amount of leakage around those windows and stuff. And they had also just recently caulked it, and they didn't scrape out the old caulking. It was just like a handyman went through and kind of put new caulking on the top. But it was brand new, and it was starting to open up.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of interesting. And then I do have the report here. I'll show it to you. Oh, here's a gas bonding. Anyway, I'll put if you're into it, you can watch the video. I'm hoping this recorded.
Yeah. Oh, I'll watch it.
Yeah. But here was my observation. This one took me quite a while, but the reason it took me so long is I basically had to be like, well, you have an EIFS system, but and apparently it's been inspected, but I found things that were not on their inspection, and that concerns me. And I would recommend getting another opinion from another EIFS specialist. Sorry, Nick. Yeah, come on in, man. I'm sorry, I'm borrowing internet from somebody because I got powers out at my house because of this snowstorm.
No, still a bad deal out there, huh?
Mike, we've never had snow like this, man. There's 15 inches at my house, and now it's raining on it and all turning into a slushy mess, and all the trees are falling down.
Well, it's a good thing that we're having that, problem with everything warming up in the atmosphere.
Well, yeah, that's right. I know. Well, I mean, you never get snow like that around here. It's pretty crazy. Or when you do, it usually just turns to rain pretty quick. But that's what we got now, just a big slushy mess. But
oh yeah.
Anyway, you can see where water was getting in. This is all stuff you know about. But I thought it was we had a nice conversation. Our guy Don McFerrin was there. He's been inspecting for like 20 years, and it was fun. We had a nice chat about some of these things. This was that other picture I wanted to show you. But I mean, look at that brand new caulk job. I mean, geez, that's.
Yeah, it's pretty poor.
Yeah.
Pretty poor.
Yep. Yeah, it really is. So, anyway.
You're right. That's a handyman job for sure.
That's right. And it was, with the conversation we had that was fun was just kind of how tricky it is being a home inspector when, they'd already had a specialist out, but it's like, well, I don't think their specialist looked all that hard,
Right.
And sometimes you're right. I mean, you have millions of those moments, but they can get uncomfortable where you have to be like, I don't think that person. I would get somebody else out to look at it. So anyway, that was interesting, but cool.
Mm-hmm.
I better get going because I actually have to. I need to get home to my kids here. But I'm so glad you made it, Mike. And I'll try to. I'm hoping this recording works, and that if it does.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get in order to see the whole thing. I really wanted to, but it's just one of those things today.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. Glad you're busy, and thanks for kicking in. And I'll try to do another one here soon. This also was somewhat last minute. My schedule's just completely blown up with all this snow. I don't know what I'm doing. It's hard to do anything.
Right. Well, go home and be safe, man.
All right, thanks. Take care, Mike. Bye.
All right, see you. Bye.